Good evening and welcome to the Daily Report. It's exactly 9 p.m. here in the capital. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We tell you all those stories that are making headlines, and then later we have the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. We're talking about NISIP, the National Irrigation Sector Investment Plan. We want to know what the plan is. How are we going to be feeding our people? But first, the highlights. Tonight, Ndini Nyoro isolated as chiefs, police snub his project launch in Kiharu. Is Nyoro a lone ranger or a project? Also tonight,
wale wanakuja mara ya kwanza kuchukua IDs lazima wafanye bure.
The government gazettes new rules on issuance of ID cards. New rules scraping identification cards application fees. Plus, Defense CS Soipan Tuya dismisses claims of a coup until the intervention of Raila Odinga.
To the extent that the article referred to a military coup, I can only say that it is indeed baseless, it is inaccurate and reckless.
The CS termed the report as baseless and misleading. And Kenyan police officer Samuel Tompoi, who died in Haiti during a peacekeeping mission, is buried in Kajiado. Welcome once again to this live broadcast. My name is Hibaq. On sign language interpretation tonight is Rhoda Nyamai. Tonight, the government has scraped the 300 shilling fee for initial ID registration and the 500 shilling vetting fee during passport application. Speaking in Nakuru County during the launch of a mobile registration drive for national identity cards, CS Murkomen emphasized that removing these levies is a crucial step in ensuring all Kenyans can access these essential services. Sheila Chelangat with more.
Na mimi nataka nitangaze nikiwa hapa Kibra leo ya kwamba kitambulisho ipatianwe bila malipo yoyote.
It is from this directive from the president in his tour of Nairobi that culminated into the Gazette notice scrapping off the 300 shillings requirement for first-time ID applicants. In November 2023, the government had proposed introducing the fee for new ID cards to 1,000 Kenyan shillings, but this was later reduced to 300 following public backlash.
Na kwa hiyo directive ya rais, kwa habari ya rais vile alitangazia wa Kenya, hivi jana nimetoa habari kamili ya kuondoa ile IDs ambao watu wanachukua kwamba itakuwa sasa bure, haiwezi chukuliwa kwa kulipa chochote.
Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen today was presiding over the launch of a mobile registration drive for the issuance of national identity cards. This drive here in Nakuru saw hundreds make their initial applications for IDs. Similar registration drives are expected to be replicated across the country.
I will soon also be launching the post-issuance ID tracking system. This new system will allow citizens to track the status of their ID applications in real time through SMS notification or online platform.
Similarly, it is a sigh of relief for those seeking passports after the CS announced the scrapping off of the 500 shillings verification fees for birth certificates.
Verification itakuwa ni kazi yetu kwa sababu ile documents ikiletwa, there is something called presumption of validity of those documents on the part of government until we prove that they are not genuine. And that's our responsibility. The people of Kenya should not be forced to pay anything, and therefore that is free.
Sheila Chelangat for TV47.
Thank you, Sheila, for that report. Tonight, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has for the second day appeared or has dismissed. Let me take that again. Defense Cabinet Secretary Soipan Tuya has dismissed claims that a coup was imminent following the June-July 2024 anti-government protests that saw the government deploy Kenyan Defense Forces officers to restore order in the country. Following the nationwide protests, Samira Mohammed with the details.
by the Senator for Kisumu County.
2 days following her statement dismissing claims that a coup was imminent following the June-July 2024 anti-government protest witnessed in the country. Defense Cabinet Secretary Soipan Toya appeared before the Senate.
It is not to say that the police are not doing their work. It is because we have serious security challenges that emerge.
Cornered and sandwiched, the soft-spoken Defense Cabinet Secretary had a barrage of questions to answer before the Senate.
What, in your view, or in the view of the ministry, was inaccurate in the report by the Daily Nation regarding the very possibility of this country being handed over to the military?
Appearing before the Senate plenary on Wednesday morning, the former Environment Cabinet Secretary said the recently published report stating that the country would have been militarized without the intervention of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga was baseless, inaccurate and reckless.
It was inaccurate about the article by the Nation Media Group, Mr. Speaker, to the extent that the article referred to a military coup. I can only say that it is indeed baseless, it is inaccurate and reckless.
And on matter of KDF military deployment in the country, following a series of protests against the controversial 2024 finance bill, Tuya averred that on internal security matters, the Constitution allows the military to step in when necessary to restore order in the country, further stating that the Kenya Defence Forces officers have not been withdrawn following their deployments in June last year.
For KDF to be effective or to effectively discharge this mandate of involvement in internal security matters, it must retain situational awareness on internal security issues at all times. And due to the fact that KDF will mainly work in support of other agencies.
But what raises more questions is the CS revelation that there are civilians misquandering as Kenya Defence Forces officers with full military uniforms and ranks deceiving Kenyans on the streets. A statement that has raised eyebrows on the security state of the nation.
Actually, we have Kenyans masquerading as generals out there with full uniform, full ranks and the likes.
Samira Mohammed for TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Samira. 2 months after Brian Odhiambo mysteriously disappeared at Lake Nakuru National Park, the national government has finally spoken out about the case for the first time. Interior and National Administration Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen publicly addressed the issue, assuring Kenyans that the government is committed to uncovering Brian's whereabouts. He stated that investigations are actively underway. Chichi Josephine with the details.
The determination of a mother.
Madam.
After months of relentless efforts to locate her son without success, Brian Odhiambo's mother, Elizabeth Auma, the fisherman who vanished under unclear circumstances, chose to confront Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen during an ID registration drive in Nakuru County. Dressed in a black t-shirt bearing the words "Justice for my son," her bold approach drew audible reactions from the crowd. Murkomen's security team moved to intervene, but he signaled them to stand down and invited her to speak.
Just come. Okay.
For 2 months, the family has pleaded for answers regarding Brian's whereabouts, last reportedly seen with Lake Nakuru National Park rangers. Their cries went unanswered until today, when the government finally broke its silence on the matter.
Hakuna kitu Brian alitukosea sisi ya kusema kwamba angeweza kupotea kwa nchi. Na hata mtu akitukosea afai kupotea.
The Interior CS stated that the president is fully apprised of the situation and pledged to intensify efforts to locate Brian.
Rais ameita kikao tumeketi. Na yenye inatusunisha zaidi ni mambo inaendelea kwa Lake Nakuru hapa. Hiyo imelete uhasama kwa sisi wote.
Wakati mtoto ameuawa na haijulikani mahali yako, na alikuwa katika mkono ya askari. Tafadhali Bwana Waziri, bila kuchukua wakati kubwa, uchunguze mambo ya KWS.
Additionally, Murkomen vowed to take decisive action against any officers implicated in the incident. He emphasized that those responsible for causing anguish to the family, as well as the Kenya Wildlife Service officers found to be participating in illegal fishing operations and attempting to cover up their misconduct, would face severe consequences.
Na mimi nitaka kumwambia mama hapa, mimi niko in solidarity with you kwa kuhakikisha kwamba tutafanya lolote liwezekanalo to hold those officers wa KWS ambao walishika kijana yako, we will hold them into account mpaka watuambie Brian ako wapi, kwa sababu sisi hatuwezi kubali namna hiyo.
Tonight, hope against hope for a family fearing for the worst.
Justice for Brian.
Chichi, Josephine, TV47, Nakuru.
Justice for Brian.
A very sad state of affairs. Thank you, Chichi. Tonight, Samuel Tompoi, a Kenyan police officer who tragically lost his life while serving on the peacekeeping mission in Haiti, has been laid to rest at his family home in Naseri and Kajiado County. The somber ceremony brought together leaders from across the political divide, including Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and Democratic Action Party leader Eugene Wamalwa. Friends, colleagues, and dignitaries gathered to pay their final respects and stand in solidarity with Tompoi's grieving family. Moige William reports.
We're here to light this candle.
Candles lifted for one last time for a police officer before his burial today.
For Samuel Kentui.
The family of the late Samuel Tompoi has mourned him as an ambitious man full of dreams, expressing hope that some of his dreams, as outlined in his eulogy, will be realized with the support of the government and those who are close to him. Leaders present in the solemn event emphasizing for the government to provide substantial compensation to this family, as he was the first Kenyan police officer to die in Haiti.
Tumesoma historia yake. Imeonyesha ni kijana shupavu sana, askari shupavu.
The December list of those who should be given national awards, I'll be very shocked. As the first of our soldiers to have fallen on this mission, if he is not given recognition posthumously.
However, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka has called for an audit of the Haiti mission, citing the uncertainties surrounding the funding and the poor equipping of the Kenyan team in Haiti.
This is an important matter. You see, this is not peacekeeping. What is happening to our boys in Haiti, they are not doing peacekeeping. They are doing peace enforcement. And that is where the difference is. And therefore, they require a special mandate of the UN Security Council to be able to do peace enforcement.
Tompoi lost his life while participating in a peacekeeping operation in Haiti after being attacked by armed gangs. The multinational security support mission confirmed his death on social media platform X in late February, stating that a Kenyan officer had succumbed to injuries sustained during an operation. The National Police Service later corroborated the report, revealing that he had come under fire from suspected gang members on a Sunday. Despite efforts to rush him to the hospital for emergency treatment, he did not survive his wounds. Moige William, TV47.
Thank you, Moige. Tonight, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has for the second day appeared in a state function with President William Ruto, a day after attending a state banquet in honor of the visiting Dutch royals, a sign of his rising influence in the government since he signed a memorandum of understanding with President Ruto 2 weeks ago. Odinga, during the award of a charter to Riara University at State House, Nairobi, sat next to the president, with Deputy President Kithure Kindiki absent from the event. Apollo Kamau tells us more.
Your Excellency, sir.
The presence of former Prime Minister and ODM party leader Raila Odinga at State House, Nairobi, seated next to President William Ruto during the award of a charter to Riara University, where he addressed the delegation, was not only a sign of their deepening bromance, but an elevation of Odinga to a co-principal status, engaging and consulting the president on almost a daily basis as his influence in the broad-based administration continues to grow.
He's virtually a co-president. And Raila is an interesting man because he's the man who likes losing so that he can win.
On Tuesday evening, Odinga was introduced by President Ruto to visiting Dutch royalty, King Willem Alexander and Queen Maxima, during a state banquet. Notably, Odinga was seated next to Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, a spot that could have otherwise been occupied by Prime Cabinet Secretary and Foreign Affairs C.S. Musalia Mudavadi, who instead sat on the opposite side.
He has this magic nobody else has of making it difficult for the winner to govern. And if the winner cannot govern, he's forced to look for Raila to cool down the temperature or to make advancement.
Since signing the cooperation pact at KICC 2 weeks ago, Odinga in the past few days has also adopted a formal dress code in his high-profile meetings at his Capitol Hill office, which has become the new center of power and a magnet of high-profile government figures and politicians, among them British High Commissioner to Kenya Neil Wigan and Mark Dillard, a diplomat at the U.S. Embassy.
I'm a younger person. You are an elder as far as I'm concerned, by age. And the contribution you have made to this Kenya deserves respect.
With phase one of their deal done, after the takeover of House committees by Odinga's allies, next is a cabinet reshuffle to accommodate Odinga's allies in the new power structure that will also extend to ambassadorial posts.
But more than Raila, there are those people who surround him, who really want him to be president because of the power and what they can do in the office of the president. So sometimes Raila is under pressure from those hangers-on, and those are likely to persuade him that he should be there.
The creation of the Prime Minister's post through the NADCO report, despite legal challenges, is likely to see Odinga given an office and his already beefed-up security enhanced. Despite holding no formal position in the broad-based government, Odinga's rising political influence keeps growing by the day, akin to his days in the Kenyatta administration after the March 2018 handshake. Apul Kamau, TV47 in Nairobi.
Interesting insights. Thank you, Apollo. Tonight, Kiharu MP Ndindi Nyoro's silence on his next political move during a press conference, on Tuesday, has sparked criticism, with pundits describing him as a leader who has lost momentum. As Micah Gongo reports, his indecisiveness has not only raised questions about his political future, but has also affected development projects in his constituency. Police and local administrators boycotted the opening of an NG-CDF-sponsored Assistant County Commissioner's office, allegedly due to uncertainty over his political stance.
Rais wetu tumefurahi sana kuwa na wewe hapa siku ya leo.
Once a close ally of President William Ruto, both before and after the Kenya Kwanza government was formed, Kiharu MP Ndindi Nyoro is now cutting the image of a politically isolated figure.
281.
On October 8, 2024, Nyoro was among 18 MPs who skipped Parliament's crucial vote to impeach former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, a conspicuous absence that raised eyebrows. Since then, he has remained on the periphery, neither fully backing President William Ruto's decision or openly aligning himself with Gachagua's camp.
Respectively though, usinibebe vibaya.
And when the much-awaited moment came, his Tuesday press briefing, Nyoro dodged the big question, failing to declare his political stand. A move that left political pundits in his constituents gazing.
But yesterday was a total disappointment. So he called a press conference to talk about how he goes to graduate schools. So what's that? He's not the only one who has gone to a graduate school. There are many people. So he lost the momentum at the time. Maybe because people had been made to believe that he was going to make a major announcement, and he did not. So that in itself was a major disappointment.
According to political analyst and historian Macharia Munene, it will be possible that there were external forces using Ndindi Nyoro as a project to destabilize Mount Kenya region, reflecting how former President Daniel Moi funded opposition to subvert the vote-rich region in 1992.
Wanjiku is still looking for somebody who can stand up for them. And Dede did not. In his major conference. And Dede should be careful that he doesn't end up looking like Peter Kenneth or even Moite, who was very popular among the voters in Kikuyu, or even Martha. So he needs better advice, whoever is advising him.
Murang'a County Senator Joe Nyoto is on record highlighting that through Gachagwa's impeachment, there is a deliberate scheme to divide the region and water down its political relevance. However, during an interview with TV47 on Wednesday morning, Nyoto denied that Nyoro was President William Ruto's project in the Mount Kenya region, pointing out that the two were reading from different scripts.
He's a very sober person. I think he's a teetotaler. And so I do not want to cast aspersions about him in any way. I may not know of maybe any plans that he's William Ruto's project. I want to trust that that is not true.
And that's why when Ndedi said he wanted a press conference, there were expectations that he might say something that might say, okay, the young man seems to know what he's doing. Yeah? He's got some sense. Yeah? But since he did not do that, and in the mountain region, there is a lot of disappointment with the president, a lot of unhappiness. And whoever is advising the president, if there is anyone, is misadvising him.
Nyoro's woes escalated when police and chiefs boycotted an event to open an NGCDF-sponsored Assistant County Commissioner's office in Kihara constituency Wednesday. Area residents asking government to shy away from politicizing development projects.
Wale wote siku ya leo ambao maofficers wenye tulikuwa tunakuja kufungulia hii ofisi ya Assistant County Commissioner, sisi kama wakaaji wa hapa town tumekasirika sana.
Venye wao wanakupiga huko juu, ndivyo sisi tuendelea kukupenda.
Na mimi sina shida na mtu afanye kazi yake, mimi nafanya yangu, yule mwingine yake, kwa sababu wananchi ndio tunatumikia.
Pundits, however, says President William Ruto's cards to woo back Mount Kenya region would only depend on reducing tax burden and the pension cost of living. Mike Kagwongo, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Mike. The move by the U.S. government to suspend foreign aid has left many nations in limbo. Global health experts now warn of a possible surge in preventable diseases as well as deaths. Countries have been urged to be self-sufficient, as Elizabeth Atieno now reports.
Kenya has been listed among 8 countries in the world running out of ARVs following the U.S. government's decision to pause foreign aid.
8 countries now have substantial disruptions to antiretroviral therapy and will run out of medicines in the coming months,
including Haiti, Kenya, Lesotho, South Sudan, Burkina Faso, Mali, Nigeria, and Ukraine.
This means that the lives of the over 1.3 million people living with HIV who rely on ARVs is at risk, posing a serious concern over a possible surge in HIV infections as well as HIV-related deaths.
Disruptions to HIV programs could undo 20 years of progress, leading to more than 10 million additional cases of HIV and 3 million HIV-related deaths, more than triple the number of deaths last year.
We already have reduced our ambition for that budget down to 872 million. We know that we're not going to go. So we've reduced our budget targets, and within that, we've done 60 million of cost containment measures.
As the impacts of the U.S. funding cuts persist, countries have been urged to invest their domestic resources on health to fill up the financial gap. The Ministry of Health saying it is coming up with measures to cushion Kenyans from the ongoing crisis.
So as we continue looking into this, the government is equally looking into the internal resource mobilization.
I think there's no doubt we have relied here in Africa on donor resources for a very long period of time. And this crisis, and it is a crisis in international development right now, is also an opportunity for us to really take our space and to really start making decisions that benefit our population.
Millions of people are now at risk of contracting HIV, polio, measles, TB, and malaria, not forgetting that over the last 2 decades, the U.S. support for malaria helped prevent over 2 billion cases and 12.7 million malaria-related deaths.
We could see an additional 15 million cases of malaria and 107,000 deaths this year alone.
The U.S. has been urged to reconsider its move on foreign aid and cut the funding in a gradual and humane manner to allow for the affected countries to find solutions, as global health experts cite dialogue as the most effective way for U.S. to resolve the crisis that poses a risk to global health. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Tonight, former Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza has launched a scathing attack on male politicians, accusing them of orchestrating her ouster in a ruthless campaign driven by gender discrimination. She claims she was relentlessly targeted by powerful forces, unwilling to accept a woman in leadership. Mwangaza insists her impeachment was not the will of the people, but a well-planned political ambush, executed in collusion with the national government to force her out of office.
A day after the swearing-in of the new Meru governor, the embattled former Governor Kawira Mwangaza has spoken out, criticizing the justice system for what she describes as corruption and a failure to allow her voters to be led by the leader they elected in the year 2022.
And the misuse of power. We must hold our leaders accountable.
In a press conference following her ouster, Mwangaza pointed to dysfunctional government systems that she claims coerced her into conforming to practices she opposed. She emphasized her commitment to acting in the people's interest and upholding the rule of law.
The people of Meru deserve leaders who will serve them with honesty and dedication, not those who are beholden to the interest of a select few.
Mwangaza has vowed to challenge her impeachment at the Court of Appeal to clear her name, terming her removal a grave injustice perpetrated by a parochial system. She declared a political onslaught against her detractors.
I am exploring all the legal and constitutional avenues to challenge this injustice. I also continue to engage with the people of Meru to ensure their voices are heard and their needs are met.
Mwangaza is among the 11 governors who have been impeached under the 2010 Constitution, being the latest to be ousted. Despite this, she expressed her intention to re-strategize and return stronger in Kenyan politics, aiming to combat male chauvinism in leadership and governance.
Together, we will write a new chapter in history.
Ruga Evil, TV47.
Thank you, Ruga. Kenya and the Netherlands have reaffirmed their commitment to deepening cooperation across various sectors following high-level political consultations. Prime Cabinet Secretary and Foreign and Diaspora Affairs Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, alongside Dutch Minister for Foreign Affairs Casper Veldekamp, underscored climate change as a critical challenge for both nations.
Playing together about Parliament. Hello. Good morning. With the kind of confident attitude, quite a number of people like Jerome.
In today's political consultations, we have agreed to accelerate our efforts to leverage Dutch technology and innovation to enhance the production and export of horticultural products from Kenya to the European market. I am pleased to note that Dutch companies continue to have high preference to invest in Kenya, as demonstrated by over 90 Dutch investors accompanying His Majesty the King.
The Netherlands is eager to work with you to promote sustainable trade and development, to tackle shared security challenges, to champion our common values on the global stage. And as new powers increase their influence, it is vital that we stand together with partners who share our commitment to stability, sustainability, and the rules-based international order.
Now, business owners, business owners at Nanak House in Nairobi CBD face evictions after
the tribunal orders that my client are supposed to pay 600,000 per month, or if they don't, then she has the right to evict them. They need to default for her to actually evict them. Rent is paid at the end of the month or at the beginning of the month, whichever you will choose. But we are in the middle of the month. Nobody has it. As have been sent by the landlady. And it is our take that
on that note, let's take a short breather, but when we come back, we have the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, Engineer Eric Mugaa, who's just going to be telling us about NISIP. You might want to know about NISIP because irrigation is the future of food production in this country. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Coming up after the break, the Ministry of Irrigation is set to launch the ambitious National Irrigation Sector Investment Plan this Friday. We speak to the CS, Eric Mugaa, on the plan.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50, going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. we dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side. We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Welcome back to the Daily Report. As I have promised very many times, we have in studio tonight the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, the engineer, Eric Mugaa. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for inviting me to join you tonight.
And welcome to TV47. It's a Gen Z young, TV station, just like you are the youngest cabinet secretary in cabinet at the moment. If you could just tell us, the senator for Nairobi had said, I have never seen this cabinet secretary. Where have you been, engineer?
Oh, that's a difficult question to answer because I've been all over.
Right.
You don't have to be the loudest to be actually working. So you just need to focus on the job at hand and deliver on your mandate. I think that is what matters.
And what
it is
matters?
not about popularity.
Right.
It is about delivery on your mandate.
All right. And what is important right now is food security. A lot of Kenyans are food insecure at the moment. We import a lot of foods that we consume, which is not the right way to do things, considering Kenya has agriculture as the backbone of its economy. Now, there is a significant amount of acres under irrigation at the moment, around 700,000+ acres, but we are aiming to almost double that number. How exactly are we going to do this?
Irrigation is very key because for too long we have depended on rain-fed agriculture. And I think if you went through the systems we learned in school, there were always those common names, the irrigation schemes, Kenya, Moya, Pokera, and then they're asking you what is it that they grow.
Right.
And this for too long has been ongoing because the focus has been on the national irrigation schemes. And times have changed clearly, climate change and also the rain seasons that we used to have that were really predictable are no longer predictable. Therefore, when farmers plant and they are ready, they have planted and they are now depending on the rain-fed agriculture, that is starting to prove to be very unsustainable. And therefore, we also need to consider that population is growing. By the census in the year 2019, we were around 47 point something million. I'm sure 5 years down the line, 5-6 years down the line, we are past almost 50 million.
Right.
And food is what is keeping me here today.
Right.
Also yourself. If you were hungry, this would have been a different conversation.
Of course. Now, engineer, we have about 85%, almost 80% of our lands being arid and semi-arid. Right. Irrigation seems to be the end-all, be-all solution. You have said that, the loudest isn't always the most, productive. Could you just tell us, what are some of the ways that we're ensuring that this arid and semi-arid land is being put into good use?
And that is very unfortunate for Kenya because, as you've clearly stated, we are about 89% arid. To produce on these lands, first we need water storage. Without water, there can't be irrigation. And therefore, we have some key dams that we are building. One of them being Mwache in the coast. We have Dhuake that is ongoing here in Makueni. We have Siu Murunyugiza. These are dams that are ongoing. But also we have smaller water retaining structures, water ponds, and all this contribute to food production, especially now that the vast lands in this country cannot produce without irrigation. And now so we are starting a conversation to actually invite young people and actually attract private money, development partners into production, because we're having conversations of Galana Kulalu, which has been ongoing for a while. You need to marry the corporate agribusiness with the community-based agribusiness. And forget not, it is also a devolved function. Right. Because once we develop these community irrigation schemes, we must hand over to communities. These communities are under the county government. So the county government also must come up with what we call the CIDUs, the County Irrigation Development Units, that actually ensure sustainability, continuance. Right. Especially after we develop the big infrastructure and hand over these community schemes to the counties.
Right, Engineer, one of the tenements of the Kenya Kwanza government in its manifesto was 100 dams. The president kept on saying it, 100 dams is what we'll have. This is going to be our solution for water scarcity, is going to be our solution for, you know, the shortcomings that we have had in agriculture. Where exactly are we in the 100 dams project?
The 100 dams project was, the main target was water harvesting. And not more than once I've said that in this country we don't have a problem with water. Right now it's raining, actually outside the office. There are studios.
Right.
All that water is heading into the drains. So that was a very clear message of water harvesting. And on this we have classified most of these dams into PPPs, whereby because of the size and the actual cost of doing a big dam, the exchequer or the government of Kenya cannot actually sustain some of these projects considering our fiscal space. I think you're also aware of our fiscal space.
All right.
Now, we have these dams classified under public-private partnerships where we are looking for a proponent to actually invest in doing these projects. These we have dams like Radat that we have put out there to attract investors in this industry. The PPP process is slow. It is not a snap of a finger kind of arrangement, right, because a proponent has to do studies out there, feasibility, etc., and then submit a privately initiated proposal to the ministry. Then it goes through the PPP directorate, so it's a lengthy process. Some of them are actually in the process of that. However, the projects that we have ongoing as a ministry, for example, Moache Dam, that are not funded by, that are funded by development partners such as World Bank, and the other dams that we are actually doing, we are fast tracking them to ensure that their completion is on course. And bottom line of this is, as a country, we really need to invest on water storage.
Right.
When do we actually need water? It is during the dry period. When do we actually need this irrigation most? It is during the dry period. So, as a country, I've always said we actually need to be objective about it, and someone has to be deliberate.
Right.
Underline that.
Objective and deliberate. Now,
about water storage.
CS, PPP is a trigger word for a lot of the youth in this country. When they hear PPP, they feel like they're being bamboozled. Now, there's this investment plan that, of course, the ministry is coming up with that is supposed to trigger so much, progress, but there is the private investor factor. How exactly are we consolidating this?
So maybe I start by, because you've said there's this investment vehicle you're coming up with.
Yes.
For quite a while, if you allow me to explain, is that we have been doing uncoordinated irrigation. The mandate of the State Department of Irrigation is, as per the executive order, is first of all to store water and manage floods, because storage of water means managing floods. Secondly, is to use that water to develop infrastructure for irrigation. Thirdly, once the irrigation schemes have been developed, they have a responsibility of managing the national irrigation schemes, and we only have 7 national irrigation schemes.
Right.
From then, we also have a duty to actually train, capacity build, etc. Now, to your question, as the ministry is doing this, counties are also doing their own small-scale irrigation projects. We have NGOs in this country that set up model farms in different areas of the country, uncoordinated. So, because the ministry has the responsibility of planning, we have come up with what we call NISIP, the National Irrigation Sector Investment Plan. So what is that? Which is this monster we are calling NISIP, as you described it.
What is this animal?
It's not an animal. It's a coherent, systematic plan. First, to solve 2 problems, to orient our focus nationally, incorporating all stakeholders, development partners, the private sector, the ministry, county governments, the farmers, and actually blended financing. To make irrigation coherent, ensure sustainability, and more so, ensure coordination. When all this is achieved, we have targets and budgets. So it's also an investment vehicle. It's a plan to raise the money to achieve our targets. And our targets are ambitious because we have a plan by 2027 to put like almost 1.28 million acres under irrigation. Right now we are past 700,000 acres. When this NISIP was conceived, it has taken time to develop because of participation.
Right.
All stakeholders in the industry doing irrigation have been consulted. We have been financed by World Bank. We have engaged experts and come up with 5 pathways on how to coordinate all the activities in agriculture, in irrigation, and target to achieve our objectives. As one of the government key agenda is actually to ensure there is food security. And the easiest way to do that is for us doing farming that we're in control of without depending on the heavens.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, engineer, of course, you said that it's important now to have this coordinated response when it comes to building these dams. And some of these projects have been lacking or have been stagnant for a very long time, even before the Kenya Kwanza government. One of your sentiments in, the bicameral houses was that, the Ukraine war did have some sort of effect on this progress. How exactly did it have an effect? Because it has become quite a meme on social media. What does Ukraine have to do with our dams?
And thank you for asking that question. We were talking about a specific dam, and I think today I again appeared to the Senate to explain the same. That dam between the year 2020 and 2023, we were at foundation stage. And foundation of such huge dams, to put it in perspective, Thuake will be the biggest dam we have as a country. Why? First, it will hold or store around 688 million meter cubic. To find that in liters, multiply by 1,000. So you will have the numbers. And this dam is huge. The length of the embankment is around 1.5 kilometers. That is 1,500 meters. And during foundation, the rock required blasting. And when you talk about blasting, maybe most Kenyans think that we are talking about grenades.
Right.
So you use explosives. It was part of the contract. There are contracts that allow using of explosives to do blasting, and there are contracts that say don't use explosives. But in this case, use of explosives was allowed to actually break the rock while doing the foundations. Unfortunately, the explosives were being imported from Ukraine.
Right.
And these explosives, I'm talking about ammonium nitrate. So when there is Ukrainian war, so supplies required was around 600 to 700 tons a month. What we could actually, because of disruption in supply chains, what we could actually procure or supply in that month was between 100, 150 to almost 200. So you see, we have a shortfall of around 400. So the rate of excavation is slowed down. Secondly, during COVID, ammonium nitrate is used in production of oxygen, which was the most required commodity during COVID-19.
Right.
Oxygen. So those dynamics slowed down the progress of works. And we actually have letters that we wrote both from the ministry and also received from the contractor. You see, when you're doing an engineering project, they actually, when there's an impediment or a challenge that might actually slow the delivery of the project, you put it in writing. That is part of the contractual obligations.
Right.
You forewarn the client that we might not deliver on time because of this and this. And we actually have letters written to the Ministry of Mining,
right,
asking for their support in sourcing these explosives to do our foundations.
Right. Engineer, what's the progress right now? You know, we've talked about how these raw materials were being used in different areas. We know that there might be some sort of impasse between Ukraine and Russia right now. The COVID era is over. When are we getting back to normal programming?
As of now, I think we are past that stage because the blasting only required during excavations. That was done and dusted. The embankment is 99% complete. The actual progress of the dam is at around 94.2% complete. We're only remaining with 6%. And remember, when this wall is done, when the embankment is done, the world dam experts that are very key on safety recommend that you monitor. You see, it's a massive wall of rock filled Panda Mawe for quite substantial amount. You give it time to settle so that until you achieve a settlement rate of less than 5 millimeters a month, then the dam is still settling, and that takes between 6 to 9 months. Then the only remaining works is to do the plastering of the upper side of the wall, the side facing the upstream side that is actually where the impoundment will happen. Otherwise the water will be penetrating. So you must do the plastering. If you do the plastering before the dam has actually settled, the plaster cracks.
Right.
So that's where we are right now.
So you would know.
No, you know you're in my domain. Maybe now you can have a conversation. Yeah.
Now, engineer, of course, around last year, your predecessor, Alice Wahome, had said that, you know, the 100 dam project will be actualized through private investors for 1.7 trillion Kenyan shillings. When it comes to NISIP, there are different players who are going to be taking part in this. What are the numbers? How much are we talking?
Before we come to numbers, you need to explain actually the pathways that we have actually developed under NISIP. We have considered 5 pathways. We call them investment avenues.
Right.
One is what we call FLEED, expanded FLEED, farmer-led investments. You see, most of our irrigation is done by farmers, small-scale farmers. When I talk about small-scale farmers, I mean farmers who do between 0.5 hectares to, say, 2 hectares. That is around 1 acre to 5 acres, roughly.
Right.
These farmers, what do they need? What they need is, first of all, they must have the drip lines or the irrigation facilities and infrastructure. And remember, some of them don't have that. They don't have the kits, they don't have the drip lines, and also they don't have the markets. And then there are those without, but they don't have a reliable source of water. That's why we're investing in what we call household ponds.
Right.
So that once we maximize that and ensure that they are efficiently trained to maximize in their small farming capacities, no one is being left behind. We achieve more production.
Right.
That's the first pathway. The second pathway is now the corporate agribusiness way.
Right.
where we are looking at mechanized farming on government land through leasing. Here we are talking about projects like Bura, that we actually commissioned the gravity flow now.
Right.
And we can command 80 to almost 100 acres, 1,000 acres of land. While initially we were commanding just 6,000 acres. This gives an avenue to attract investors, commercial investors, to actually take up land and do commercial farming. This is our biggest target because this is what we are calling private finance.
Right.
A proponent will come up or an investor will come up, invest their money in that farm, in the process create employment, in the process reduce our food deficit and also earn us more exchequer in case we're exporting. The third pathway is to revitalize what we call the arid ASAL areas.
Right.
Arid and some arid areas. This is where most of activities that take place there is pastoralism. So if they can produce their subsistence food through water harvesting via lagers, you know, the sand dams,
right,
where you hold water. Are you familiar with those concepts of sand dams?
Well,
we call them lagers in layman terms.
Yes, yes.
So, and also use that water to actually irrigate fodder. That is livestock food, feeds, fodder, correct? So, we're also planning to maximize on where we have lagers so that the people, the community around there can actually use that water to do some crop production and also produce fodder. That reduces their mobility in some extent because now when there is pasture available, do you have to keep moving?
No, of course not.
Because also, no, provision of government services also becomes key because now we can find them in a centralized position.
Right.
Our children school better when they have stability on residence. Then the fourth is the community programs.
Right.
The community, we call them community irrigation schemes. This is where now the county governments come in very hard because once we develop the infrastructure for the community, we hand over this infrastructure and the ministry does not have enough resources to sustain and actually ensure continuity of all these even small irrigation schemes because they need operations and maintenance. They will need aggregators. We need to link them with markets out there and actually ensure that they continue producing at optimum even once the infrastructure is done.
Right.
Now we need what we call the CDUs, the County Irrigation Development Units. It's synergy. We develop, the communities run them, but training, capacity building, linking to aggregators is done by the counties.
Now, engineer, what's the lifespan for this particular project? Because again, Kenyans have started, to associate the government projects with a lack of promise keeping. What is the actualization rate? NISIP is a plan, right? A blueprint, a guide, a compass, you may call it that, for a period of 10 years. So all this is envisioned in a duration of 10 years, where we have concerted effort and put our minds, soul, and everything we have towards the achievement of that. Okay.
Because the target is to do around 598 billion Kenya shillings. That's what we are trying to attract in terms of the package and kit that we are looking for, the funding we are looking for. And in our projections, the government cannot do like around that 9% of that, which is almost 203 billion. And that's why we are very keen to ensure that we bring everyone on board. Because now private capital means more now than ever. We are talking about food security issues.
Right.
So we are counting on every penny that we can raise. Yeah.
So that baby will come to term.
That is the prayer and that's the focus.
As we pray for that baby, let's look at a few business news. Now, Standard Chartered Bank Limited has reported a significant 43% rise in profit before tax for the year 2024. This impressive growth has been fueled by strong top-line expansion, sustained business momentum, and the seamless integration of cross-border services for corporate clients, with wealth management solutions tailored for affluent individuals. The bank effectively managed its costs, achieving a positive income-to-cost differential of 13%. This strong performance highlights the bank's strategic execution and ability to thrive despite challenging market conditions. The financial results mark a year of major achievements for Standard Chartered.
And we know what we need to do. You know, from having the
just the key numbers to keep in mind: income up at 50.7, that's 21% year on year. Operating expenses 8% year on year. Earnings per share up 46%. Dividend per ordinary share 45 shillings, which is 55% compared to the previous year, which translates to total dividend, as my CFO was reminding me when we are looking at these numbers. The total dividend that we are going to pay in full quantum is 17 billion shillings, which is...
Governors are set to hold an emergency Council of Governors meeting this Friday to discuss budget cuts totaling 25 billion shillings, a move that has sparked growing tensions with the National Treasury. The governors whose donor-funded projects are directly affected are urging the Senate to reject the cuts and demand accountability from the Treasury. The meeting comes amid an ongoing dispute over reductions in the Roads Maintenance Levy Fund and other grant allocations. Meanwhile, the executive is stepping in to ease tension. And visionaries, innovators, and aviation industry leaders from across Africa and beyond have converged in Nairobi for the first ever Africa Advanced Air Mobility Symposium, a landmark event in the continent's aviation sectors. Hosted by Fahari Aviation, a subsidiary of Kenya Airways, the symposium is exploring how AAM can address Africa's unique transportation challenges.
And we know what we need to do, you know, from having the proper regulatory framework to investing in R&D, that is research and development, you know, to investing in infrastructure and whatever.
The technology that we are seeing, and Hawkins has already said the plan, you know, working with OEMs, working with government and regulators and other industry players to see how fast we can roll this out. Of course, there are certain important tenets that need to be introduced in the industry. So, for example, we need a proper framework, integration of the traffic system, the air traffic management system, regulatory framework to be enhanced so that to make sure that all this, the air traffic is working seamlessly.
This new sector of AAM will need to develop infrastructure on ground and also traffic flows management. And this is very important to support this new industry.
And finally, the National Police Service says it's ready and set for the WRC Safari Rally 2025, scheduled to take place from 20th to 23rd March 2025 in Naivasha.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
Sports news brought to you by Maybets. Join Maybets leo upate free bet papo hapo. Fanya hivi, chagua home team to win, yani number 1 au draw X au away team 2 kwa game ya siku ya free bet. Weka namba yako ya simu, weka password ya account yako, chagua submit free bet. Utapata free bet kwa account yako ya Maybets. Usisahau kuverify account yako. Kama hutakuwa verified, utapoteza free bet yako after 2 days. Betting is strictly for 18 years and over. Play responsibly. Terms and conditions apply. BCLB number 0000578.
Maybet na minia na najishindia. Pesa inavutia.
Now, the much anticipated World Rally Championships Safari Rally will be flagged off on Thursday morning at City Hall, Nairobi. 18 local drivers are part of the 50 teams expected to participate in the 4-day race with a cumulative distance of 1,500 kilometers. TV47, Radio 47, and TV47 Digital will bring you all the action in Nairobi and Naivasha, as our reporter Alan Zuki explains.
With the WRC Safari Rally set to be officially flagged off on Thursday morning, Carl Rovanperä from Finland stole the show earlier today as he clinched the shakedown title. The race zooms off outside City Hall in Nairobi before heading to the super special stage in Kasarani from 1 p.m. local time. Afterwards, the cars will cruise to Naivasha, Nakuru County.
And the flagging off of the event will start at about 10:00 hours. And the process of flagging off the vehicles will go on until noon, slightly past noon, about 12:06 hours. The vehicles having been flagged off from this venue will drive up to super special stage that is in Kasarani. There, those vehicles will stay there for some minutes until 13:05 hours.
The multi-agency security team has put measures in place to ensure smooth traffic flow.
Those those police officers that will be deployed along those particular routes, their duties in particular will be to ensure free flow of the traffic, give priority to the rally cars, and also enforce lane disciplines and prevent accidents that may occur during such periods, clear any obstructions, and also to guide the spectators.
Kenya will be represented by 18 top drivers, including Africa Rally Champion Karan Patel, Africa Junior Rally Champion Amza Anwar, National Champion Jasmine Shana, multiple Safari Rally Champion Carl Tundo, Tinashi Gatimu, Pauline Sheku, Evans Kavisi, and Issa Anwari.
The car has been worked on for quite a while now. It's in tip-top condition. We rebuilt almost everything from the bottom up. We had a few gremlins to start with, but it's typical with this lifestyle. So we are used to having problems every once in a while. But yeah, we're testing the car to just make sure everything is in good nick. And we're ready for the event.
We're all geared forward for the rally. It's going to be a wet one. It's going to be fun. Let's all be safe. Don't drink and drive. And yeah, let's go have some fun.
The 4-day extravaganza will come to a close on Sunday at Hell's Gate in Naivasha. Zuki Alan for TV47 Sports.
Thank you, Nzuki. The much-anticipated Victoria Cup 2025 is set to begin tomorrow, bringing together the best golfing talents from Kenya and Uganda in a celebration of sportsmanship. Earlier today, the golfers took part in the official practice round at the stunning Mount Kipipiri Golf Resort, the host venue for this year's tournament. Kenya won the event in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2022, and 2024, while Uganda claimed victory in 2019. The event was, however, not held in 2020 and 2021 due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
So we are looking forward to 3 days of very competitive golf. Victoria Cup is a tournament that was established in 2016, and we are playing for a trophy that was donated by the famous marathoner Moses Tanui. It's a tournament between Kenya and Uganda.
Our team is quite prepared. We feel good. We've been here for about 2 days. I've done a couple of rounds. The team feels strong. We have 3 juniors on the team, very competitive, and I'm glad Team Kenya as well has a few juniors on the team as well. So I believe it's going to be a very competitive 3 days, and hopefully the best team will come on top.
And the Kenya national football team Harambee Stars is set to face Gambia tomorrow at 10 p.m. in the World Cup qualifiers in Abidjan. Stars arrived in Ivory Coast last evening and will be looking to bag all the 3 points before jetting back into Nairobi to face Gabon in a crucial qualifier at Nyayo National Stadium. On Sunday, March 23rd, FKF CEO Harold Ndege has provided an update on the ticketing and security plans.
There'll be only 22,900 tickets available. Out of the 22,900 tickets available, 21,000 tickets will be for the regular seats. These 21,000 tickets will be charged at 300 Kenya shillings each. 1,800 VIP tickets will be available, and each will cost 1,000 Kenya shillings. There'll be 100 VVIP tickets available, and each ticket will cost 10,000 bob. It is important to note that the VVIP tickets are coming with a premium. The ticket holders will have access to secured parking. They will have halftime refreshments, and they'll have exclusive networking opportunities within that platform. We insist that all the tickets will be closed on Saturday. There will be no ticket sales beyond Saturday, March 22nd, 2025.
Sports News brought to you by Maybets. Join Maybets leo upate free bet papo hapo. Fanya hivi, chagua home team to win, yani number 1 au draw X au away team 2 kwa game ya siku ya free bet. Weka namba yako ya simu, weka password ya account yako, chagua submit free bet. Utapata free bet kwa account yako ya Maybets. Usisahau kuverify account yako. Kama hutakuwa verified, utapoteza free bet yako after 2 days. Betting is strictly for 18 years and over. Play responsibly. Terms and conditions apply. BCLB number 0000578.
Maybet na minia na najishindia. Pesa inavutia, pesa inavutia.
All right, welcome back to the marketplace. We're talking about NISIP, the National Irrigation Sector Investment Plan. We're talking about positivity or even productivity increase by 200%. 300% when it comes to, having some of the yields that we're used to having, food security, filling our food baskets in the country. Engineer, we were talking about, how we're going to chart NISIP, how exactly we're going to be going into this uncharted territory by having a system or a framework that is more predictable. Now, I've seen that there's going to be a business unusual concept that's going to be running with NISIP. What exactly does this entail? Why is it business unusual? What is this framework that is so different from other projects?
It's a framework of coordination, you see. Concerted efforts towards something that is of a national scale. And that is why we are calling upon all stakeholders, actually, more so the farmers. You see, farming also puts some money in your pocket.
Right.
It's a way of, it's a livelihood. It's a means to an end that solves both the local economy and also the national economy gets revenue, and also we earn foreign exchange.
Right.
These efforts, it's not we don't want this to become the normal conversation that people have. And then it gets dusted on your shelves, dead and forgotten.
Right.
It is something that we actually have put teams to follow up consistently. And this will involve all of us, development partners, NGOs, blended financing, and also our country has to look positive to the eye of the investors. Because these are people who are bringing huge chunks of money to our country, helping us solve a problem that has plagued us for years, food security. And also, in the process, we get employment opportunities for our young people. And by the way, irrigation is very cool. We have modern technology now to the young people.
Engineer, you do know that the average age for the farmer in the country is now 61 years.
Yeah.
A year or so back, it used to be 60 years. It's growing more unpopular according to statistics. How is irrigation cool? I understand that you're a very young CS, you're within the youth bracket, but how are you making it cool?
First, the old furrow kind of irrigation is not very interesting to the young people.
Right.
Young people want ingenuity, they want creativity, and also they want funds, resources.
Right.
Once you produce and you have no market, clearly it's not fun to anyone.
Right.
So when a young person embraces technology, because being young is being dynamic, it's being youthful, is also being in a position to experiment with the technologies that are coming up. As a country, we need to keep abreast with emerging technologies on matters irrigation. Secondly, that is not enough, because with the produce, without a market, we are in trouble.
Right.
So we are also doing the whole food chain link up, because you produce, we provide you aggregators and link you to the market. And also, this also ties up with the government agenda, especially on CAIPs, that is county aggregated industrial parks.
Right.
I know we have all of them ongoing. So my docket on irrigation will be part of the supply chain to these CAIPs.
Right.
And apparently, because of the situation we find ourselves in, the age of an average farmer being 61 is not very conducive.
Right.
Our strength as a nation is our youth.
True.
So unless we get our young people, and that's why this is very targeted to the young people, unless we get our young people into actual production, then that food deficit that we have as a nation will take a while to actually cover.
Right. A farmer-led, irrigation project, a farmer-led irrigation, framework is what we're talking about. And if we are focusing on the farmer, one of the main concerns of farmers is, market access. It's very important right now. I went to Bura and Hola, and I did realize that some of the, parcels of land, there's sunflower seeds. And some of those sunflower seeds do undergo, a value addition before they're exported. What are some of the other things that are being done in order to ensure that farmers get the market that they need in order to pull in the youth as well? Because the youth go where the money resides.
That's a very interesting statement. Definitely. And the young people now actually want to be successful at a young age.
Sure.
That is, it makes them very, very hardworking to achieve the goal. But the discussion, especially on farmer-led, Said, when we say farmer-led, we mean a farmer has skin in that game, in that farming. Projects are more sustainable if the participants have something to lose in the process.
Right.
So farmer-led is where these are, I call them small-scale farmers, that now we are trying to have an expanded, that we maximize their potential, because once they invest in these irrigation schemes, it's on a personal basis.
Right.
All we do as a ministry and other stakeholders is actually provide them with irrigation water first, that is very key,
right,
where possible. Secondly, provide them with technology and build their capacity, advise on what are the high value crops.
Right.
So the farmer invests in the farming, we invest in bringing aggregators, as you said, and linking them to markets. So the synergy between us and the farmer, because now the farmer is more motivated to farm with the input you're giving. Fertilizers, things like that, the substrate fertilizers.
Right.
These are things that boost the morale of the farmer. So the farmer is more motivated to produce more in the land space that is available to him.
Right.
And this way I talked about, these are farmers with 0.5 to 2 hectares of land. That is between 1 and 5.
Right.
In the other farmers under the same bracket, but they don't have a reliable source of water.
Right.
So that's why we have a program in the ministry, what we call households, ponds,
Water pans, yes.
that are actually targeted to individual farms. The capacity of these water ponds vary between 100 meter cubic to, 1,000 to 3,000.
Right.
So that the farmer, in case the rain is not enough, during the rain season he actually harvests that water instead of it becoming surface runoff. And in case the rain is not enough in the process, the farmer can use that water to complete the stage of the crop on his farm. It's a very interesting thing.
Right, and clearly people are very interested, because I'm seeing some questions are coming in. Do send some of your feedback on the numbers and social media handles on your screen. There's a question from Delva Koech who's asking, ask the CS if there are any plans for urban water harvesting. I think probably this is someone who lives within Nairobi or within a cityscape. What are some of the plans for water harvesting?
Thank you, Koech. That is someone who has lived in our urban centers.
Clearly, yes.
And we are well aware of the challenges that we face, especially on provision of water. Urban water harvesting, first of all, is what we call home-based water harvesting.
Right.
And that is at your homestead level. That is roof harvesting.
Right.
You have to start from the basics first. Controlling the water that hits our roofs, through our gutters, into our small storage tanks at homes, solves the problem of flooding mostly in our towns.
Right.
Secondly, we need to have what we call detention and detention parks in our towns, because some towns have become concrete jungles.
Right.
It's the roof to Cabro, which is a pavement, so there's no time for us for this water to infiltrate and become groundwater. So even our aquifers in our towns are deteriorating with time due to lack of recharge.
Right.
That water goes to the drain, it finds itself in a drain that was sized for a certain amount, and now the volume is much more because there's no infiltration to the ground, and we have flooding on our centers. Now, the water that escapes the homestead water harvesting and does not become groundwater recharge because there is no enough contact time between the water and the ground, or there is no actual contact because it's hitting the roof, which is impermeable, and then hits a pavement, which is impermeable, finds itself in our river courses. And that cumulatively, based on the size of the catchment, causes havoc in terms of flooding on the downstream. That's when I talked about doing very serious objective dams in the process.
Right.
Those are the ones that become our line of last defense.
Right.
To store the water, then we can use that water for treatment. We can treat it for domestic use. We can use it to produce hydropower, or we can use it to irrigate our lands. And that becomes an entire cyclic kind of setup.
Right. Engineer, the Water Resource Authority has time and time again, flagged the depleting groundwater, especially when it comes to digging of boreholes that have not been either, approved or even checked properly, because there are some developers who are not going through the correct channels. We see buildings coming up every single day, especially in our city. This is a growing concern. What are some of the solutions?
And I will acknowledge that is a challenge. Some people are doing things not following the correct procedure. And that's why WRA is a regulator. Water Resources Authority is a regulator. They don't only regulate groundwater, they also regulate surface water, because there are levy charges that go to WRA. Let Kenyans understand that water is like oil and gas. It's a natural resource. It can be exhausted if we don't use wisely and conserve. So when boreholes are done, because the set out procedure is you apply for a license, you do the surveys to find out whether there is actually an aquifer where you want to drill, and the ministry and the WRA can advise you on the right place to actually do drilling, so that you don't end up with dry boreholes, because we have cases where Kenyans have invested, drilled without permissions or approved geological surveys, and found dry boreholes. So that is an investment sunk and investment wasted. Right. Secondly, if these boreholes are too close to each other, it's a problem because of recharge area. So you find during the rain season, the water table is up because of recharge, so most boreholes have water.
Right.
During the dry period, you find maybe your borehole doesn't have water, because you not adhere to the distances, the radio distance between one borehole and the next. And to solve all that problem I would ask Kenyans to actually follow the due process, because we have experts in the ministry who can advise you accordingly. And it also helps in updating our records and database. Right. Because if you drill without permission, then your borehole is not in our database. So when we are advising the next person who comes with following the due process, and we are not aware of your borehole, you also, in a way, indirectly affect the positioning of his borehole. And that is a challenge that all of us have to agree and work towards the right procedures of doing things as a country.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Engineer, for those sentiments. Let's take a very short breather, but when we come back, we delve into that a little bit more, and then we come to realize also, NISIP, what does it mean for you? Right there in your home, how exactly is it going to make your life easier? What does this mean for the common wananchi? Don't go too far. We'll be right back.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
Welcome back to the Daily Report. We're just wrapping up here with the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. We're talking about NISIP, the National Irrigation Sector Investment Plan. We're talking about a multi-pronged approach to solving some of the problems we have with water, security and water scarcity. As we were talking about making this project viable for the common mwananchi, right? A lot of Kenyans look at these projects and they seem like something so far away for other people. It seems so scientific and so hard to grasp. These frameworks seem so foreign to them most of the time. What does NISIP have to do with the common mwananchi? How will I benefit, for example?
NISIP to the common mwananchi is actually very viable, because we have targeted all categories. We have looked at the corporate agribusiness. We have looked at the people in ASALs by vitalized ASAL irrigations. Mm-hmm. And those are some of the common mwananchi. Mm-hmm. We have looked at the community-based. Mm-hmm. Community-based, literally the people who are organized into communities in our counties. Mm-hmm. And then we have looked at what we have called the farmer-led. Mm-hmm. The common mwananchi is the small farmer. Mm-hmm. It's not these large-scale farmers who are doing 1,000 acres, right, 10,000 acres. Mm-hmm. We are talking of 1 acre. Mm-hmm. And even 1 to 5. Mm-hmm. Common mwananchi might not even have 1. Might have his half acre, which is normal for the young people, mm-hmm, especially, mm-hmm, because now, resources are finite.
Right.
We build your capacity at whatever level, mm-hmm, of the food chain you are.
Right.
Because who needs more training? The mechanized farmer, the large-scale farmer, who can actually even bring experts on his own, or the small-scale farmer, who needs help at every stage of the way. Right. And then we organize these farmers, mm-hmm, into what I call either circles or cooperatives.
Right.
For them to have a bigger bargaining power. Mm-hmm. Those organizations also ensure sustainability, because you will be contributing, you will be maintaining the infrastructure, especially the conveyance systems that break so often. Here I'm talking about the canals that require desilting once in a while. I'm talking about intakes that can get vandalized. When you organize as a group, the small farmers organize themselves. It is easier because of those small charges that you pay to maintain the infrastructure. And also when it comes now to bringing aggregators, it is very difficult to bring an aggregator to one single farmer, small farmer. But when all of you come together, things like trainings become cheaper. You can even actually do what we call field trips to other farms as a group. Things like supply of fertilizers, because you are organized as a group. We know the number and we know your demand. And then the benefit of friendships. Farming also brings people together. We are social human beings. So we assist each other at different levels, but we are bound together by a common goal, which is actually national integration, because our neighbors are different people. And therefore we get to learn each other's culture better, and we also get to understand we are the same people, the same blood flows in our veins. And this integration brings about national cohesion, apart from now the finances, the money you'll get from farming, and also the warm friendships we develop, we become a better country. So it's a holistic kind of picture in it.
Engineer, of course we know right now that we do import some of our food, actually most of our food, going up to about 700 billion Kenyan shillings yearly, just to feed ourselves. And this could be, solved by NISIP. We're talking about a 61% to 39% financing. We're talking about achieving most of this within the next 3 to 5 years, but 3 to 10 years, give or take. How exactly will this fruition begin? How will we reduce this amount?
Because agriculture also talks about irrigation contributes to agriculture. It's an interministerial kind of synergy. Specifically under the ministry, we are mandated to produce rice. Rice is purely under the docket, the ministry. And as we speak, we produce around 250,000 metric tons of rice, and we have a deficit of around 700,000 metric tons.
That's a big number.
It's a big number. It's a challenge. And that's why in our production, one of the pathways that we have, because the rice producers are mostly the national irrigation schemes. Here I'm talking about Moya. I'm talking about now the Bura that has come up. I'm talking about projects in Luakuja. I'm talking about projects in Bunyala. That is what now we are calling Nzoia, Loa Nzoia. One of the pathways, the fifth pathway that I didn't actually mention, was maximizing the output from our national irrigation schemes. How do you do this? First of all, you can't maximize what you don't understand. You do assessments. Then you build capacity of the staff. And finally, you develop adequate water sources. For example, you go to an irrigation scheme like Pakera. The acreage is around 5,500 acres. The actual land under production is around 2,800 acres. You know what the challenge is? The land is available, the farmers are very willing to work, but we don't have adequate water. The river Pakera fluctuates during the dry period and during the rain season. So when we actually need to do production, there is no water. And that's why I will talk of another dam that I think we are working towards achieving that as a ministry, but it's a very ambitious project. The High Grand Falls Dam, the one that is at the border of Thakaniti, Embu, and Kitui. That dam, we are floating it. We are looking for proponents and public-private partnerships. Would store 5 billion liters of water, 5 billion liters of water. That would be the biggest dam.
What's holding us back?
Finances. Because our feasibility studies say, our feasibility assessments say, we will require around 300 billion Kenya shillings to do. So how is that tenable from the exchequer? That dam will balance the water flows in River Tana. You see, River Tana is used to produce in Bura, right? It is used to produce in Hola, kule chini, Spat. And this River Tana flows full and sometimes actually floods in the lower regions when it is raining like right now. And all that water that comes from Nairobi, and the Tana catchment, ends up in the Indian Ocean during the dry period, and that water is wasted. When it is actually dry, like we were there when we were launching Bura irrigation, the gravity canal in Bura, you realize the river has dwindled so much. So the acreage potential under production cannot be sustained by the flow of that water unless you divert all of it into farming. And remember, you must have the environmental flow downstream. You cannot divert the entire river to farming because the people downstream are also dependent on that river. So that dam becomes like a balancing tank, a balancing reservoir. During the rain season right now, the dam will impound. It can impound 5 billion liters of water. Instead of that water causing havoc downstream and flooding happens, we just now regulate the flow. As the dry season sets in and the river starts dwindling, now you open your valves to supplement the flow in the river. So the farmer who is farming, if he's doing 100,000 acres in Bura, is assured that whether the river dwindles or not, we have a buffer, a regulating mechanism, storage in that dam.
Right. And how exactly, engineer, are we positioning ourselves for investors to come? Because if private-public partnership is the solution, and NISEP, of course, is coming in, how much can we get these investors to be interested in us?
See, the first thing in positioning yourself is to have a plan.
Right.
That is
how do we
a plan.
make dams look commercially viable?
Another thing, the viability of a dam. You see, in Kenya, in most communities, people believe water is free. I think where you come from, because where I come from, tunasema maji natoka msituni.
Yes.
Some say water is free actually. But that notion is what is making our water projects not viable. So because our PPP projects are taking too long to actualize, we have actually commenced an assessment of our SWOT analysis of our strengths and weaknesses. And one of the things that is clearly coming out is that the water industry, PPPs and the water industry have what we call a viability gap. Because the proponent or an investor, after doing his mathematics, will tell you that I'll sell 1 liter, for example, at say 150 Kenya shillings. Not 1 liter, 1 meter cubic, that is 1,000 liters, at maybe 150 Kenya shillings, for example. But now because you cannot privatize water, we have a service provider and a service regulator called WASREB, the Water Services Regulatory Board. It is supposed, it gives, based on locations, tariffs at what rate should you sell the water.
Right.
Now maybe it gives in that site, it gives a rate of say 110 per 1 meter cubic. So we have a gap, a viability gap of 40 shillings, for example.
Who bears that brunt?
And that is why PPP projects in water are facing a challenge.
Okay.
Going forward, we need to develop either a kitty to supplement that viability gap, because PPPs have timelines, concessional period, maximum of according to the PPP Act, a maximum of 30 years. So if this guy is to break even in a certain period of time, before he hands over the project, he needs to charge this amount, but the regulator says you can't go past this. So we find ourselves with a viability gap. To fund that, it's either we develop a kitty to be covering that, or the regulator reviews the tariffs, and that becomes a big problem to the people. So we have commenced a study, an assessment actually, to see how better we can position ourselves. Secondly, the ministry has what we call legacy debts. These things are real, whereby projects were done a long time ago, and those debts are still in our books because they were not repaid.
All right.
So when a proponent comes and checks on how the ministry is doing on matters finances and inspects our books, they find that we have pending amounts that we owe to treasury. And then it's like, if you can't pay this, and I invest like my 10, 5, 7 amount of money, billion or something, how sure am I I'll break, I'll recoup my investment. And that, in a way, can scare them off. So to address all this, we need to have concerted discussions of actually how to solve the pending, the legacy debts that as per the evaluation by the ministry that guys are looking at, we are to the around above 180 billion Kenya shillings.
Right, engineer, is there a possibility that the exchequer could come in this situation? For the greater good of the people, is it possible that the exchequer could come in?
Everything is possible.
Right, under the sun.
Under the sun. But also, we look, because I'm a logical man, we look at the physical space that we are having right now. That is what is, that's why I said it has to be objective and deliberate.
Right.
That water, being a social and economic right, we have to fine-tune our funding, especially because, for example, to achieve 100% connectivity, because that's our target by the year 2030, we developed another, apart, this is State Department of Irrigation, correct?
Right.
We are talking about.
Yes.
Under the State Department of Water and Sanitation, we have what we call NAWASIP, National Water and Sanitation Investment Plan, another one like this. This was done before my tenure, and the projections were done by the engineers and the technical team in the ministry brought it to around, we need a total of around 995 billion Kenya shillings to achieve 100% connectivity. Now, if you compare that, that is a full basket that includes development partners, it includes the money we can raise from public-private partnerships, it includes the exchequer grants, and also blended financing. Now, the government is mandated to provide basic services to the people, but now, because of our financing space, that's why we are very keen on attracting development partners in the ministry. It's the same thing I'm telling you. So it has to be deliberate and very objective.
Right.
Yeah.
Engineer, one would ask then, you know, you've been in this ministry for a while now.
6 months, not a while, just this
to be honest, you know, the thing with being a young person is 6 months is a very long time. I think for the older generations, 6 months could be, you know, a very short amount of time. What would you say is your legacy? What exactly have you done so far within that ministry?
This, what I'm launching is part of my legacy, to be honest. To streamline and leave a well thought out process on how to handle irrigation. Secondly, we have delivered the Bura. You know, Bura
the
Canal,
yes.
the canal,
yes.
Since 1979. Those guys could not believe that water will one day get to their farms by gravity. as late as December. Every month we used to pay fuel charges because water was being pumped to a tune of around 15 million every month. And the achievement of that ensures that those people for the remaining 40, 50 years will never incur the charges of fuel. And that water, one of the farmers complained the other day, the water is too much.
Right. Suffering from success.
You understand? And going forward, I would like to ensure that I complete the ongoing dams. You know, Mimi, I know that our main challenge is just water storage.
Right.
Even the supply, the last miles, cannot happen if you don't have a source. That's why I'm very keen on Mwacha. I met it at 12%. As we speak, it's about 22, 23% ongoing. I've been there more than twice.
Right.
Siwe Murunya, I met it around 79. It's around 85. But we still, because this is funded by the government of Kenya and the fiscal space we are in, we are still struggling with that. This dam we are talking about here, Thwake, this dam has been, it's the closest we have to actually complete a key dam.
Right.
At least to impound. We are hoping when we get the resources, we can impound by the short trains of December. And I am very keen to complete that.
Right, and when do we launch NISIP officially? You know, TV47 was lucky enough to get a slice of the cake before everyone else. We get to unveil NISIP before all else. But when do we officially launch it?
The big day is on 21st.
Right.
This month, not next month, this month on Friday. And we are saying there is room for everyone. Come to Semezane.
To Semezane, jamani.
Yes.
And one last question as we wrap up, Engineer. Someone is asking, did you finally buy that car?
Not yet.
6 months.
Why does that matter? We are talking about NISIP, correct?
Yes, we are, but people are curious. I had to ask on behalf of the people.
What are the people asking?
Of the people.
Not yet.
Not yet. Tentatively when? By God's grace.
Nikupanga tu. Right now we focus on delivering the mandate, and it's a lot actually. It's a lot, but I think you've seen I'm up to the task.
As I would say, yes, you are.
Thank you
so much for joining us. Bwana CS, I've had a very, tumenongonezana, and we've gotten to know some of the things that the ministry is working on, and if irrigation is truly viable, and some of the benefits that it's going to have on you, your farms, and your productivity. It's been a wonderful Wednesday night. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Daily Report and the Marketplace. From me, Hibaq Said, it's good night. And from the sign language interpreter, Rhoda Nyamai, it's good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.